Classroom is open. Let's hope they fucking don't jack me. There you go.
The last 30 years have seen hundreds of exciting new discoveries in our solar system.
Classroom open.
The Hubble Space Telescope alone has sent back literally thousands of stunning images of everything from new planetary ring systems to Neptune's dark spot. These discoveries have helped us understand many previously misunderstood anomalies and shed light on many puzzling mysteries. However, there are still so many unanswered questions about our universe. In terms of anomalies, Iapetus is so loaded even the brightest minds would struggle to answer the multitude of questions it poses. In fact, it spurred one puzzled scientist to say, "Nowhere is objectivity in modern science so clearly questioned as in the wildly eccentric moon Iapetus." Donald Goldsmith and Tobias Owen commented on the strangeness of this moon in their book, The Search for Life in the Universe. One quote reads, "Iapetus is the only object in the solar system which we could seriously consider as an alien signpost, a natural object intentionally altered by an advanced civilization to attract our attention." Attract our attention. Keep those words in mind. Italian-French astronomer Giovanni Domenici Cassini discovered Iapetus in 1671 as it hovered on the right side of Saturn. But as it slowly moved along its orbit and crossed over to the left side of the ringed planet, it vanished. At first, Cassini was puzzled by this strange phenomenon. However, he soon realized that one side of Iapetus was vastly brighter than the other. Fast forward over 300 years later to August 1981, and we get our first close-up view of this orbiting oddity from NASA's Voyager 1. The photos taken by Voyager 1 proved that Cassini was correct. One side of Iapetus was 10 times darker than the other side, hence the nickname the Yin-Yang Moon. No other satellite in the entire solar system has anything comparable to the black and white hemispherical features of Iapetus. As for why Iapetus has a dark side, no reasonable explanation has been found or given. Hence, we can only wonder what mechanisms could be responsible for such a strange anomaly. Voyager 1 was also used to calculate the mass and density of Iapetus. These tests revealed further anomalies. Unusually, its relative density was about 20 or 30% heavier than a similar-sized. Furthermore, optical measurements indicated another potential mystery. This moon appears to be visibly squashed. Iapetus should be a perfect sphere, like the ice worlds of Mimas, Enceladus, and Dione. This begs another question. What happened to Iapetus?
Making my lemon water.
It also has an abnormal orbit. It has an almost perfectly circular orbit, not elliptical like most others, with a radius of 3,560,820 kilometers, taking 79 days to complete one orbit and one revolution. The orbital distance is very nearly 60 Saturn radii, which is a mystery in and of itself. Iapetus is also tilted 15 degrees from the other Saturnian moons. The generally accepted hypothesis for the creation of planets and their moons is known as the nebula model. According to this model, stars are created by the gravitational collapse of hydrogen clouds. This results in a protoplanetary disk around the star. The protoplanetary disk can then generate the creation of one or more planets. Therefore, mutual gravitational attractions and frictional forces tend to warp the orbits of the forming planets and/or moons into the general plane of all of the forming objects. The high inclination orbit of Iapetus cannot be easily explained by the nebula model. Of course, the problem can be solved rather neatly if Iapetus was an artificial satellite. In that case, finding it in such an odd orbit would not be unusual. Strangely, because of this distant, inclined orbit, Iapetus is the only large moon from which the rings of Saturn would be clearly visible. From the other inner moons, the rings would be edge-on and challenging to see.
There you go.
In 1997, an advanced new probe named Cassini was launched. By July 2004, it had reached Iapetus in the Saturnian system and started sending back the same elliptically shaped dark region on the surface of Iapetus. But later, on December the 31st, 2004, Cassini had a much closer encounter, passing at a distance of 40,000 miles. These images captured one of the most remarkable anomalies in the solar system, the ridge of Iapetus. How can there be a 20-kilometer high and 15-kilometer wide wall running across the entire hemisphere of Iapetus? It is more than twice the height of Mount Everest and about half the size of our moon. The ridge offers no obvious origin story. Still, NASA has suggested it is either an extensive mountain range or a long crack from which material has been ejected. These explanations are highly improbable. The first problem is the straight line. No other natural geological feature in the solar system, or on Earth for that matter, has such a regular structure, at least on this scale. It is so unusual that one researcher has called the wall a vast planet-spanning artificial construct. Indeed, some scientists suggest that evidence of civilization on a planet can be found in the geometry of surface features. If the current models of how satellites and planets form are correct, there is no part of any theory that even hints at, never mind accounts for, the existence of this ridge. Another strange irregularity with this 12-mile-high ridge is that it runs around the equator and divides the darker region on Iapetus's surface neatly into two halves. The craters of Iapetus have dark walls facing the equator and bright walls facing the lunar poles. This is highly noteworthy because it suggests the source for the dark material is equatorial. However, NASA favors the outside source theory. However, one science writer is quoted as saying, "The exogenous argument is supported because nobody can develop a valid reason why Iapetus's interior would spew such dark substance when none of Saturn's other moons show any traces of it." The conventional method for studying a satellite is to use radar, even on moons primarily made up of water ice. However, Iapetus is highly unusual in this respect too. If it is, in fact, ice, the ice is significantly less reflective than you would expect to find. Furthermore, the radar implies no difference between the dark and light sides. How is this possible? This has been likened to the technology behind stealth aircraft. Stealth technology is based on two properties, coating and geometry. One could, for example, use coatings to absorb the shorter wavelength radar signals. Stealth becomes very real if this is then combined with a geometry that does not directly reflect the radar beam. In this regard, we find NASA's attempt to explain the yin-yang effect quite telling. They said, one half of Iapetus is relatively bright but oddly covered with long and thin streaks. The other half is strangely uniform, like a dark coating was somehow recently applied to an ancient and highly cratered surface. What if the low radar reflectivity is intentional, i.e., that there was some form of intelligent design at work for the purpose of hiding or even highlighting Iapetus? The idea of a stealth satellite does not make much sense, since it can easily be seen. Interestingly, instead of becoming less noteworthy to the passing intelligence, it suddenly becomes more like an object attracting attention. There are other glaring oddities in some of the Iapetus photos. Lunar craters are, by their nature, roughly circular. However, a detailed, greatly magnified, close-up image of the surface of Iapetus seems to suggest square-shaped indentations. This has been called the waffle pattern, and is more evidence that the satellite is not a natural object. Other craters appear to be hexagonal, with a raised mound in the center. Another has an irregular shape and an extraordinarily linear ridge, roughly in the crater's center. Whether this crater formed due to an impact or through volcanic action, how can a linear ridge form approximately 24 miles in length? Another question we can ponder is that if the density of Iapetus indicates it is mainly composed of water ice,
Wouldn't this mean that the craters are more likely to be round, or at least not hexagonal? Remarkably, there also appears to be evidence of sophisticated, aligned, repeating architectural styles and rectilinear design extending across this entire surface of Iapetus. Experts have carefully examined these photos, and their conclusions were quite astonishing. Iapetus's surface is also foreign to any known natural processes. A tall, very narrow structure extends from the surface at one point like a towering spike. Like the geodesic structure, this spike also has no natural explanation. Was Iapetus an ancient, once operational Death Star, now orbiting in silence and decay? There are signs that Iapetus is coming apart at the seams, which has only increased the speculation surrounding this moon. Close-up pictures of some areas, especially the large hexagon crater, appear to show the moon's interior. Iapetus may have an outer shell, and within are more shells exposing massive inner structural supports. If it decays further, we could soon be seeing the inner workings of the most fascinating ancient ruins in the solar system. Was this another home abandoned by the gods? Richard Hoagland believes the people who made Iapetus were originally from Mars and once possessed this godlike technology a long time ago. The words you're about to hear were penned over 50 years ago by Arthur C. Clarke to illustrate the journey of a lone surviving astronaut called David Bowman as he travels to the planet Saturn aboard a 21st century spacecraft named Discovery. One hemisphere of the satellite was extraordinarily dark and showed hardly any surface detail. The other half, in complete contrast, was dominated by a brilliant white oval about 200 miles in width and roughly 400 miles in length. Now, only part of this remarkable structure was in daylight, but the reason for Iapetus's extraordinary contrasts in brilliance was now very apparent. What Bowman encounters in the Saturn system, on a mysterious moon named Iapetus, will permanently alter the destiny of humans. Iapetus is regarded by many researchers as an artificial construct, and they could be right. The sheer number of totally unique features exhibited by Iapetus cannot be ignored. Perhaps it was used as an ark by the survivors of a Martian cataclysm, or as an outpost for extraterrestrial explorers. If they had the science and engineering, there is no reason, in principle, that they could not have traveled through the universe colonizing wherever they could.
Of course.
Richard Hoagland offers the theory that Iapetus is not one of Saturn's natural moons, but is actually a 900 miles wide, manufactured, ancient, world-sized spaceship. Did these space voyagers leave hints of their once greatness and scientific prowess in the ruins of Iapetus? Only time will tell.
Peace. That's the classroom. I hope y'all enjoyed it with me. This is what I do. This is why I'm the way I am. I'm coming from a higher, consciousness, a higher realm, man, because that's where we are. It's just the avatar. But one time for the one time. Sonny Handsum. And I told you I'm just getting started with these videos. So I'll be able to, have a classroom the way I want to and really speak to the people. Peace, 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 peace.